All right, looks like we are live. So, hey everybody, this is Steve. How's it going? Steve Bishop from ProgrammingMadeEasy.com. And I got a bit of bad news for you guys. I was hoping to have Chris on right now, and I'm kind of disappointed. I was just chatting with him last night. We were getting everything ready to go with this. Sent him sent him the link earlier today, and apparently I don't know if he forgot or he just got detained somehow. Maybe, I don't know, maybe got picked up for a bender last night. I don't know what happened to Chris. I hope he's okay. I still gave him out the information that he needs, so hopefully he sees one of my numerous requests for him to come join us, and I gave him the link to go ahead and join at any time. So he might pop in here at any minute and be available for us to go ahead and do this. And that's what I was really hoping for, was to get him on to ask him about this, about RubberDuck. So thank you for the one viewer that we have on here. Thanks for joining us. Unfortunately, like I said, Chris is not here right now. Hopefully he comes on later. If you guys have any questions that you want to ask me or Chris, if he does come on, please feel free to just hit the little live chat thing. It's going to be in the upper corner. I think it's reversed here. It's going to be that way. I keep forgetting my view has the image flipped, so I think it's going to be up in that that corner over there, where you can do the live chat and you can ask me questions. I'm watching right here on my screen to my right. It looks to my right is the live chat that you guys have, that you guys can ask me those questions. So I'm keeping an eye on it, and I will respond to anything that you guys come up with. So with that being said, so since Chris is not here, I don't have the opportunity yet to ask him questions. Hopefully, like I said, he joins us a little bit later. For those of you kids that are just joining us now, Chris isn't here yet. I at least want to do something for you guys. And I know a lot of you guys were probably mostly interested in this RubberDuck add-in that I recently discovered. And I put up that access video about interfaces and being able to do some really cool stuff with interfaces in VBA. And it means that there's a lot more object-oriented programming stuff that you can do in VBA that I didn't even know, and that's really kind of remarkable. Now, I'm not going to get into a whole bunch of specifics about object-oriented programming. The solid principles would probably touch on a few of those things. But I really kind of wanted to talk a little bit about RubberDuck. And honestly, I was really going to hopefully take this opportunity to have Chris kind of talk through some of the different features that are in RubberDuck. And I have not really had a whole bunch of time to go through and do everything and really explore it and see what it can do. But there's a couple of key features on here that I thought I would at least share with you guys so that you could at least understand how they work. And I want to do a quick little demonstration about a practice called test-driven development, which is something that I do in C#. I do it with my ASP.NET Core applications. I do it with all of my, all of the applications that I do in .NET. I do test-driven development as much as I can. And so I kind of want to show you guys that you can actually do it now in VBA, which is really cool. So I will kind of show you guys unit testing in RubberDuck so that you guys can get an idea of that. I have not yet successfully gotten the source code thing to work yet, but again, I'm just starting out with this thing. There's probably something I'm not doing, but I'll at least show you guys what that is and how it kind of works. So I see that there's some new viewers that just come on. You're probably wondering, where the heck is this Chris McClellan guy? He has not shown up yet. I sent him out the invite. Hopefully he joins us soon. I've sent him a couple of emails. I've sent him some tweets. We were in correspondence just yesterday, and so hopefully he just either spaced his mind. I hope everything's okay with him. I hope he's doing all right. And maybe he'll join us at some point during this, and then we'll be able to, actually do what we were hoping to do and interview him. So I again apologize to everybody who's not who came here expecting to see Chris and have the conversation with him. Unfortunately, at this particular moment, he's not here yet. So let me get started, though. I am going to go ahead and do a screen share here of what's going on with my desktop here. And this is the RubberDuck website, so rubberduckvba.com. And this is that really great utility that I recently ran across with VBA And this allows you to do some really cool things like I talked about in that last video, with interfaces and inheritance. So you can do this thing like unit testing, code inspections, and refactorings. And this unit testing one is the one that I really kind of want to show you today, at least until, like I said, if Chris shows up, that'd be great. If not, then at least you guys will get something out of this video. So we can do unit testing in VBA, which is really, really cool. So in order to get RubberDuck installed onto your computer, all you really need to do is you need to go down here to the bottom of the page, and you can see, are you running the latest version? Just click on the download button, and it'll show you the different list of releases. And you can go to earlier versions if you'd like. But here's the most recent one is 2.011. And you could just go down to the downloads here, and you could just download and run this executable. And that's really all it takes. And then once you've got it installed, when you go to open up a new Access database, I'm going to create a new database here. I'm just going to call this RubberDuck demo. Okay, so we have a regular Access database here. We've got a table. I'm going to actually get rid of this table. It's not necessary. Most of what RubberDuck does is just strictly code window stuff. It's not going to help you with any of your tables, reports, or queries or forms or anything like that. It's actually handling stuff in the code, the VBA stuff, okay? And I know a lot of you guys really have got turned on to VBA based upon the series of videos that I put out on this. And I'm just going to tell you right now, VBA makes everything better. Being able to control and manage everything on your forms and control your forms and your reports and stuff is very, very important. So when I go to run the Visual Basic VBE editor here, you saw that little splash screen for the RubberDuck, which is really cool. I'm glad that they did that. You can turn it on, turn it off, that sort of thing. And once your RubberDuck has been installed, you'll have this menu option up here to run RubberDuck. So you'll have like a menu item here with a bunch of different settings and things in here. And at first, and this kind of threw me, I didn't have any options. Everything was grayed out. Everything was kind of, as far as options up here, everything was disabled. I could go into the settings though and do some things. So let me just show you a few things that are in here that you might want to know about. First of all, I would say don't do the autosave. I've run into problems with this, so don't turn it on, because if you're in the middle of typing something, it'll just save right in the middle of while you're typing, and it causes your cursor to go everywhere. So I would just not do that. Also, there aren't any folders in Access. In Excel, you can do foldering, but in Access, you can't. So just be aware of that. There is some logging that you can check out. So you can do like debug logging, which is really cool. By default, it's not turned on at all. But I figure that's pretty good to have some logging that's automatically built into your code inspection and stuff. There's a bunch of hotkeys that you can set up. So here's your control shifts and the keys that you want to hit. And that'll pop up like the Code Explorer window and other great, really cool stuff. All the utilities that come with RubberDuck. To do, I haven't really fiddled around with to do, but I would imagine this is something really good for if you guys do get into like more of the agile type of stuff and you want to keep track of your tasks. Keeping track of them is basically a to-do is just pretty easy. And then you can just have it right here inside of your code editor. So you can keep track of the tasks that you need to keep track of, right within your code. That's perfect. Some code inspection settings, these are just really kind of nifty things about, you can actually kind of run like a little diagnostic of how your code is working. And RubberDuck will tell you some different problems that you might encounter. And in fact, let me see if I can, let's pull up here. Let me go back to the RubberDuck page. And if we look at the inspections, so here's a whole litany of different things that RubberDuck will check for. So like here's one, and this is kind of interesting, and I was going to bring this up with Chris, Hungarian notation. So Hungarian notation is where we were doing things like, and I actually demonstrated this as part of my code. Just go into this. I'm going to actually go and just open up a I'm just going to create a new module so I can show this to you guys. But essentially, it was like if we do a public sub, my function, actually my subroutine, and if I'm going to dim a new variable, like if it was going to be a string, I would do like str and then my string, right? And that is what's called Hungarian notation, where you put this little 3-character, sometimes 2 or 4-character, like little designation of what it is. And it kind of makes things real helpful when you have like forms, when you have form design, you have a text box that you're adding here, and you want to label this as a text box, so you do txt, like first name or something like that. That's actually a Hungarian notation as well. And it means that in a lot of circles, obviously, this makes things easier because, hey, I know that this is a text box and I want to reference my text boxes. So I still, to a certain extent, like doing this, just because I guess it's kind of a comfort zone for me, because now I can, very easily reference that text box in the code. So I could just do me.txt and I can find all the text boxes that are on my form, and I can select the one that I want. So it's kind of a nice little security blanket. And to me, I understand that there's a lot of people that think that this is less readable because more modern programming styles get rid of the need for that. You can actually see kind of like what the text boxes and stuff are for, or what the different controls are. You can find out what the different control types are just by typing them in the VBA code. You can see what they are. So you don't need this kind of prefix to tell you what kind of control it is. You could just do it as a first name or something like that. But in VBA, I think it's still kind of not a bad practice to still do. So I'm not really sure that I would get rid of it. And that's kind of an interesting code inspection that they have listed here. And I'll just bring up the code inspections back up. So that's the Hungarian notation thing. And they're saying makes code less readable and is redundant when strongly typed variables and meaningful names are used. So I guess the replacement would probably be more meaningful names. So I guess what that really indicates, and I think that this is kind of the route they're going for, is instead of calling this txt first name, you do something like this: first name text box. Okay, and then you're essentially just naming it more complete, which I kind of agree with. I think that this is more descriptive, right? This is a more descriptive name, but it's kind of a small, almost insignificant difference. And so that's why I'm kind of on the fence about this. I get that this is nicer in a lot of circles, but for the older developers out there who've been using the Hungarian notation, this makes total sense. And it's definitely not less readable. So maybe when, if first name, maybe when Chris comes on, we can ask him about this, and we can find out what his thoughts are on the whole Hungarian notation thing. What does the RubberDuck plugin does? Antonio, gonna check it out. So yeah, I'm not sure what it really means, Mohammed. So you might be a bit more specific. I'm not sure. I kind of passed over a lot of things here, so I'm not really sure what you mean by it. It really does. But as far as Antonio goes, yeah, the RubberDuck plugin adds a whole bunch of tools, a lot of functionality here, and I'm just kind of going over them. Here's like the list of features. And if you don't know how to get to RubberDuck, it's just rubberduckvba.com. So there's refactorings. So you can do like renames. You can extract methods, extract interfaces. You can implement an interface. And interfaces are basically what I talked about in that last advanced video on access. Remove parameters. So you can remove parameters in case it looks like a procedure called in 12 places needs to change and you need a new version no longer needing one of those parameters. This refactoring will remove it from the signature and from every call site as well. So that's pretty cool. If you remove a parameter from out of your function or out of your subroutine, it can go and inspect your code where that function is being called from and remove all of the parameters from where it's being called. That's pretty cool. So You don't have to try to find all the different locations in your code where it's at. Reordering parameters, okay, move closer to usage. So this is pretty interesting. Moving your dim statements basically closer to the scope that they're used within. That's pretty important. Encapsulate a field. So yeah, private and public properties, or I should say a public property, you should have a backing field that's private. So that's what this encapsulation field is all about. Introduce parameters, probably the opposite of removing parameters, and introducing field is probably about the same thing. So that's just a refactoring. There's some code inspections that we were talking about here. Like I said, the Hungarian notation, application worksheet functions. That's probably more for Excel, I would imagine. Okay, parameter not used. So I don't really want to go over all of this stuff. You guys can check out all the inspections, navigation, a new code explorer. That's pretty cool, but it only really works in Excel. Access doesn't really do the foldering very much, so you can't do that. But this unit testing, that's the good stuff. All right, that's the good stuff. So let's get working on code inspection. I got a notification here. Let me just see if Chris is trying to contact me, because he is about 15 minutes late, and you guys are all probably wondering where the heck is he? And it does not look like he has yet noticed that he is missing. So that is a bummer. I'm really sorry for you guys. I really was hoping to get him on here and ask him the questions, but we'll see. Okay, so let's get rid of all this stuff. I want to show you guys unit testing, because this is a big deal also. And I know I made a big deal out of the inheritance, and it's not technically inheritance what I showed you guys. I gotta get rid of the form. So it's not technically inheritance that I showed you guys. It was actually polymorphism, but there's kind of, inheritance is kind of a component of that particular form of polymorphism. And so I'm talking about object-oriented programming. Hold on, Mohammed asks, is this something we're going to discuss more in future videos? Because I understand this is only a demo video. Yes, I will be doing more exploratory videos in this for you guys, because this is a pretty ground-shaking type of thing. There's a lot to go over here. There's a lot to discuss of this. And so it really requires a lot more inspection of some of these different things. I just kind of want to show you guys the unit testing, because I think that once you guys understand this and you start to work with test-driven development and unit tests, it's going to make your life a lot easier in ways that you don't really understand. It's going to look out from the outset that it's harder, but it's actually a lot easier. So let's start off first and foremost by I've got to run this pending here. And once I do that, now you'll notice that all these other things up here that I said were missing, like now I have test explorer, test module, I have the indent, and there's nothing in refactor right now because I don't have any code. There's the navigation, so I can pull up the code explorer, and it looks like it's taking its sweet little time. Not really sure why. Let's see. Anyway, let's go ahead and let's add a new unit test. We'll do the test explorer, and I've docked mine down here to the bottom. And I'm going to add a new test module. And so this is a regular module, okay, but it started out as called test module. And what we've got here is a module that is designed to contain code that will actually test other code, okay? And actually, I don't really like this assert. Let me do something real quick here. I'm going to change this up. Let me delete this. No, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually include, if I go to the, it's not there. Hold on, sorry. It is under the settings for unit testing. So I have it set to late binding, okay? And I actually want to set this to early binding so we get some of the IntelliSense. But I found a glitch with this. I've brought it up on their GitHub repository. So hopefully they fix this soon. But essentially now I have early binding. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new test module. And now we have this instead. We have this assert object that's a type of assert class that comes out of the RubberDuck library, okay? And what we're doing here is this assert is essentially going to give us certain things that will allow us to test whether something is true or false. So right now it says on this first test method here, and I'll get into the particulars of this a little bit later so you guys can get a bit more information about how this all works. But essentially this method here, this test method 1, I can rename this to something else. I'm going to leave it test method 1 for right now. But essentially, I can write code in here to test something. Okay. And let's say I'm going to create a new math class. Okay. So under this section called arrange, there's typically there's three different steps for every test that you want to write. There's arrange, act, and assert. It's the AAAs or 3As. So to arrange, I'm going to do this. I'm going to create a new object, a new variable here. And I'm just going to call this math. Okay, so dim math class as a new math class. Okay, now, some of you guys are going to be looking at this and going, but wait a minute. You haven't actually created this math class before. You're right. That's exactly the case. I have not created a math class yet. It doesn't exist. And if I try to debug this and compile it, I'm going to get an error. Now, this is what we call the red phase. This is called the red phase of test-driven development. I'm writing a test that I intend to fail. I want it to fail. And debugging it and compiling it when I get this error, that's red. It's not working. So that means my test doesn't work right now. And in order for me to make this work, what do I have to do? Well, I got to go create this new math class. So in order to make this test pass in its current state, I need to go and insert a new class module. Okay. Now, I don't need to put anything in this, right? Because the only thing I need to do in order to make this test pass, let me go back to the code here. The only thing I need to do in order to make this code work is to make my class named math class. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change the name of this to math class. Okay, so I'm going to save that. Save everything here. Yes, I'll save it as test module 1. I'll probably rename that later, but we'll get to that in just a moment. So I have a class now called math class, and now when I debug and compile, it works. Okay, right? It works. So I can dim this new math class. Now, obviously, I haven't done anything all that, I haven't really done anything all that important, except that I've created a class that I know is going to fulfill at least what I've got as part of this test. Now, let's say that what I want this class to do is take two numbers and add them together. I want a function on this math class that's going to return an added value. I understand this is a very, very simple demonstration, and everything that I'm going to do is going to look really, really complex, but you'll start to see that this helps with our code in the future. So, okay, weird. So, act. What do I want to do in act? This is where you actually do something, where you actually want to call your code to do something. So I'm going to say math class. And I'm going to say I want the add function is going to return back, let's say if I did 2 and 2, I would expect to get 4. So this is going to be a function, which means I actually need this to be like this. And I need it to return to some sort of result. Okay, so I'm going to assign the result of whatever this method is that hasn't been created yet, right? And in fact, my result object isn't even created, so my test isn't even done yet. So I need to do this, dim result as integer. Okay, we'll just do it as an integer for right now. So I'm going to create this result integer. I'm going to assign it whatever gets returned back from this add method. Okay, and again, if I save this and I debug and compile, again, we have an error. Okay, we're still in the red phase of this. We're in the red phase now of the test-driven development cycle. So now what I'm going to do is I need to go and create this method, right? And that method needs to have 2 and 2, or some way to accept 2 parameters of type integer. So I just need to do just enough code to make that function work. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go a public function. Did I do that right? Okay, public function add. Okay, and it's going to take 2 parameters. So we're going to do parameter. Well, let's do first integer adds integer, and second integer adds integer. Okay, and it's going to return an integer. Okay, so I wrote just enough code to get that to work. Okay, that I can pass in an integer and an integer to this function called add. Okay, so now my code compiles, right? My code works. It doesn't do anything, but it passes, right? So let's go back to our test module. So this works. Now, what I would like to do is set it so that on this assert object, and again, this assert object is what's created up here, and it is one of these called assert classes from the RubberDuck library, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to change this from inconclusive to art equal. And art equal is a special function that compares 2 values, what the expected value is, and then what the actual value is. And you can see that. What is expected, and then what's the actual. So I expect that I should get a return value of 4 from the result value, or from the result variable, right? So I'm saying compare this value to this value, and if they are equal, then this test will pass. Okay, this test will pass. Now, there is a bug here, and if I try to discover my tests, it won't find it. So if I try to run them, I'm not going to find anything. And the way that you solve this, and again, I really hope that they fix this, is if you go to Tools and you go to References, you need to unreference RubberDuck and click OK. It really sucks that I have to do that, but now I can do that refresh, and now it will find my test. But it won't run because right now I'm getting this as new RubberDuck assert class. Okay. So if I tried to debug this and compile, it's going to say undefined type, not defined. I can fix this, at least for right now. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, I'm going to comment this out, and I'm going to change this to late binding. Because right now, this is early binding, and it only works when we have that reference, right? When we have the RubberDuck reference. But since we took out the RubberDuck reference, that won't work. And instead, what we have to do is we have to make our private assert as object. And then here under the module initialize, this will run, okay, this function will run every time that the module starts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, that should be assert. I'm going to set the assert equal to create object. And the create object type is this RubberDuck assert class. Okay, and I'm just going to put that in quotation marks. And this will now run just fine. It should compile. Okay, it works fine. And essentially, I'm just changing this from early binding to late binding. And it just means that I don't have the IntelliSense on that assert object, which is what I really kind of want the early binding for. And again, I really hope they fix this. Okay, so everything compiles now. So if my test runner or test explorer found my one test called test method, okay, test method 1, okay, and now I can go run all tests. And when I run all tests, hopefully this works. Come on. Is it going to work? Do I need to do that? Maybe. Where am I going wrong? Come on. Of course these demos don't work. Of course I've got problems. Compile again, maybe? Run. What's going on here? Why can't I run? Oh, dear me. If this doesn't work, I'm going to be so upset. Come on, baby. Why aren't you running? Here, let me exit out and try it over. Maybe I just need to. See, this is the kind of stuff that just really bothers you, doesn't it? When you're trying to demo stuff and everything breaks. RubberDuck demo, enable content. Maybe that needed to be turned on first. Let's go back to our Visual Basic window here. There's our add method. Okay. There's our test module. Let's open up our unit testing. Oh, I got to hit this. It's pending right now. Loading references. Why are you loading references? Oh, there's that RubberDuck reference. Try this again. Parsing, resolve, inspecting, ready. Okay, it says we're ready. Let's try this again. So I'm going to go to my Test Explorer, run all tests. There we go. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I don't know. Sometimes these things you just need to test out. Okay, so our test is failing, which is actually really cool. This means that I know exactly what's wrong. Now, this probably doesn't help. And we'll solve that in just a moment, but I need to make this test pass. I need to do what's called the green phase. Let's make the test pass. And you make the test pass by doing the least amount of required work to make it pass, okay? And this is going to sound and look really, really goofy, but follow along with me here. So I'm going to call this add function, right? This what this test module is doing is it's calling this add function on my math class, and it's expecting a result of 4. Okay, in order to make this pass, what do I need to do? What's the easiest possible thing for me to do in order to make this pass? As far-fetched as you may think it is, the simplest thing to do is say add equals 4. Okay? Yeah, I know that sounds completely insane. It sounds ridiculous. Of course, my test is going to pass. Big freaking whoop-de-doo. Let's go ahead and run it. Oh, look, my test passed. Oh, dear me. Okay, does that mean my code works the way I want it to? No, probably not. But you know what? It works. It passes. So here's what I'm going to do. I do need to fix a few things. First of all, this name of this test doesn't really tell me what it does, right? So just looking down here at the name of the test, I can't really tell what the test does. And what we're in is something called the refactor phase. So we did red phase where we wrote a test that failed, okay? And that includes even writing the code. You know, sometimes your code doesn't even work yet because you haven't created the classes necessary. That's the red phase. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change my test method 1. I'm going to refactor this so that it makes more sense. I'm going to say, let's say 2, let's see, add 2 plus 2 equals 4. Okay, so debug, compile. Okay, I've refactored it. I've changed something in my test. It's always a good idea. Let's just go and run all tests again. Okay, yep, it's green. We're all good. All right, so that class, that test works. It doesn't seem like it does anything, but let's do this. Let's add another test method to this class. And I'm going to say, for this one, I want to test 2 plus 3. So we're going to say add 2 plus 3 equals 5. Okay? So that's the name of my test. I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. And now for arrange, I'm going to say, well, let's see. I want to dim my math class as new math class. Okay, and notice that this is exactly the same thing as what I've done up here. So I'm copying, I'm writing code, and if I had to write the same thing over and over for every one of my tests, maybe it's a good idea to, instead of duplicating my code and copying and pasting or something like that each time, let's do this. Let's just go ahead and I'm going to make a private, and this is going to be math class. Oops, this is, yeah, call it math class. Actually, I'm going to call this system under test as math class. That's actually kind of a standard that you might run into, is whenever you're testing a class, you call it SUT for system under test. So that's not a bad idea. And then I'm going to also set SUT equal to a new math class. Okay, that way now I have a variable that's going to be available throughout my entire test module, and I'm setting the value right here when the module initializes. Okay, so now I can actually get rid of this. I don't need it here. And now this is just system under test. So I'll just recode that. And this can also just go away because I don't need it anymore. And we'll just do this. Let's run all our tests and make sure that everything passes again. So that test that we wrote up here passes. Okay, so that passes. Even though I renamed it, right? So I refactored it. I refactored the test so that it now uses system under test instead. All right, so now under arrange, what am I saying here? Well, I need to dim another result as integer. Okay. The act is to say, okay, my system under test, if I do add 2 plus 3, I need to assign this to the result variable here. So we'll do add 2 plus 3. Okay, my test should assert r equal, should be 5. That should be the result I expect from the result. Okay. So now if I save this, I'm going to run my tests. It fails. And I can even see, look at this. Look, here's what the assertion expected was 5, but the actual result was 4. So I know precisely by looking at this test, by looking at the result of this test, where the problem was in my code. Okay, and I can double click on this. It'll take me right to the subroutine, the test that failed. So what do I need to do? Well, I need to make this pass now. So what's the least, what can I do, what's the least amount of work I need to do on my math class in order to make this work? Well, I could do something like this. I could do like if first integer equals 2 and second integer. Oh, I spelled integer wrong. INT. Okay, here we go. Second integer equals 2. Then add 4, or else add equals 5. Okay? Sounds ridiculous, I know. Again, seems totally ridiculous. But we have a test that's passing now, okay? Right? Because if I run all tests, bingo, my tests work. Now, this is where the refactoring phase of things comes in and is so important. Okay, yes, my tests will pass, but is there something I could do to perhaps make this work a little bit better? And the answer is yes. And really, I've gone too far with the logic here. There's something I can do to simplify this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do add equals first integer plus second integer. Okay, so I've refactored my code, but now when I run both of my tests, they both work. So I just made changes. Here's the important thing to understand. I just made changes to my code, and I have the tests already in place that tell me that my refactor worked, and it didn't break anything. That's the important thing to get from this, okay? I can make changes to this code. I can make all sorts of silly changes. I could do a while loop, or I could do some sort of call to another class, or a private function that actually does the addition. You know, internal add, and it takes, first as integer, second as integer, okay, and it returns as integer, okay. So I'm completely refactoring again, right? I'm refactoring, and I'm going to say internal add equals first plus second, okay? And now all I have to do is do this, right? Internal add, okay? And it seems goofy, right? But look at this. I've changed my class. I've changed my math class to do something completely different behavior, totally different behavior that I'm doing right now. But guess what I can do? Run all my tests. Oh, argument not optional. Uh-oh, what did I goof up? First, second. What did I goof up? Oh, I forgot to pass along my values. I forgot to do this. This needs to be first integer, second integer. That probably will solve that, right? So that's why we do the refactoring, and we have the tests to tell us when something goes wrong. Bingo. So there we go. I completely changed the functionality of how this class works. I totally altered it in some other completely different way, but I still have two tests that tell me that my code is going to fulfill the obligations and gives me the results that I expect. Yeah, so I got a Twitter notification. Maybe Chris, let me just check real quick and see. Oh, okay, here, let's see. Beyond sorry. Oh, okay. Well, he said something came up with his family, and he might have to do it some other time. I hope his family's okay. So, Chris, I'm sorry, man. I hope everything's okay. Let me know if there's anything I can do, man. I hope everything is good. And you have a perfectly valid excuse. I totally understand. Family stuff happens. So, but at least I hope you guys are watching or learning something from this. So that's just really cool. I kind of wanted to show you this. This is obviously a very simple and basic demonstration. We can do some more complicated things. We could add more tests here. But typically, you want to write a test that you know is going to fail. So there's some stuff that we could do here to make sure that this fails, and it would cause us to do some refactoring of our code. So we could do something like public sub add two decimals or doubles. We'll just leave it at that. Oops. Actually, let me use their little, they got a little code snippet way of doing this. I could just do add test method. I'll call this so add add two decimals or doubles. Sorry, my C# brain taking over wants to use decimal instead of double. Okay, so this would obviously fail, right? If I tried to do anything with this, if I did system under test add, and we did like 2.5 and 3.5. Let's do 3.6 just so we get a different number here. And let's assign this to, actually, oh, that's under act. Sorry, it's in the wrong spot. Let's move this to under act. And we're going to dim result as, it should be a double, okay, because we expect a result of double back. This is going to fail because the data types are wrong, okay? And now we would say assert r equal, and we're going to say, so that should be 6.1, and it should be what the result returns back. Save, let me just do that. Okay, so if we, so we have a new unknown test, we run all this, we get a failure, okay? So r equal assertion failed, expected 6.1, actual was 6, okay? So, and that's because what ended up happening was we had some sort of rounding happening, right? Here back in our add function. So we could refactor this to do some sort of different thing. in fact, what we could do, so how could we make this work? Let's do a private function of, actually, let's change that. I don't need to do it that way. I'm going to just kind of go back to a simpler implementation here. So we just had add first integer plus second integer. Okay, so we know that this doesn't work. I just changed things. Let's hit the run all tests. We know that the other two, based upon just running those tests, we still see that these other two tests still work. But this one, this new one that we created, doesn't. Excuse me here. Sorry, I got a cold. So how can we fix this? Well, instead of saying integers, let's change this to doubles. Okay. Now, we change that to double. Let's debug, compile. And when we run this, all tests pass. And all I had to do was just change those things. Maybe there's some refactoring we may need to do. We may need to refactor our test module, though, because we've got our 1 here. Let's go to our add 2 plus 3 equals 5. Is there anything in here that needs to be changed? Not really. We could pass in an integer. Anything needs to be changed there? Nope. So you can see all we're basically doing is we're writing tests that specifically should fail. And then we're going into our class and we're refactoring it. We're doing whatever we have to, the easiest thing possible to make it work, and then make any changes or refactors later on. Probably the one thing I would change is the way that I've named this. Instead of test module 1, I'd say this should be, since we're testing the add function on this, I'm going to say tests. I always prefix this with tests underscore because it makes it easier for me to organize them in my code base. I can see where the tests are. So I'm going to say tests math class add method. Okay, so that way I can see my module is tests math class add method. And now, you can see that RubberDuck automatically detected those changes. I can just go ahead and run all tests. We'd see the tests math class add method, and then the method name that it tested was add 2 doubles. That passes. Same thing here. My test class, test math class add method, add 2 plus 2 equals 4, and so on and so forth. Okay, so. Okay, can you talk about a big scenario in which RubberDuck could help you greatly? No demo, you just tell us. I guess it would help a big picture. So this is obviously a small scale thing, right? I'm just demoing a very small, simple thing. When you start to get bigger things, and probably the biggest hurdle that you guys have to overcome before you can even really think about this test-driven development stuff, is that you have to start thinking more in terms of classes and object-oriented programming. So yeah, you need to go away. Sorry, there's somebody harassing people. You need to go. All right. Sorry about that. Scars was being an ass, so he's gone. So anyway, to answer your question, Mohammed, you really need to understand object-oriented programming. It's something that you really should learn. And object-oriented programming has these 3 pillars. I actually say there's 4, but most schools of thought say that there's 3. There's something called polymorphism, which is the one that I talked about in the last video, the last access video. You know what, let me switch. I'm going to switch back to camera. Okay, there we go. So you guys can see my big, ugly mug. I know a lot of you guys want to see it. So you definitely want to learn object-oriented programming. And here's the thing. VBA, I thought for the longest time, had no way of doing object-oriented stuff. But it turns out it does. At least there's some things that it can't quite do. There's no inheritance, specifically inheritance. It's kind of there's kind of a reverse inheritance, if you will. It's kind of weird. It's kind of like how events bubble up instead of being called down. is, kind of the opposite way of calling things. I'm getting a little off track, and I'm probably confusing the hell out of you. I'm sorry. Essentially, there's three different pillars to object-oriented programming. Okay, there's polymorphism, which is kind of what we were actually doing. I said inheritance in the last video, but it's really polymorphism with a hint of inheritance to it. When I was talking about interfaces, where you can have one class that inherits from another class, takes those components, takes those parts, those members, okay, we call them members, the properties and the methods of a class, and then uses them inside of themselves, right? So you just kind of pull in all those other members from that other class, and you can use them inside of this other class. Okay, that's inheritance, where you just pull that stuff in and reuse it. So that's a big one, and we can kind of get around some of that because you don't really have true inheritance in VBA, but you do have, you can do something called dependency injection. You can inject those classes into your other classes. So you can create a new instance of whatever that class is that you want to use, and just use it inside your class. Okay, that's a form of inheritance. It's kind of a different way of doing it. It's called a has-a relationship. If you watch my C# series, and if you watch my ASP.NET Core series, it's much easier to explain in those terms because it's an actual OOP language. And you can see hard, concrete examples of it. So anyway, but what you can do is you can take like an object. Okay, you create a class like this one that we're building here, this math class, and you can just create a new instance of that math class in your code, and then you can basically reuse all of those same members in that math in a new class, right? That's basically inheritance, and we don't really genuinely have it in VBA. But then there's polymorphism, and polymorphism is what I really demonstrated, where you have the same interface, but you can have different implementations of that interface. You have two different classes that both use that same interface, and that's polymorphism, being able to have something and reuse it over and over again. Unfortunately, we don't have method polymorphism, which is where you have what's called method overloading, where in C# and other object-oriented programming languages, you can create the same method name over and over again, but you change what's called the signature, which is, the signature is your public function add first integer as double, second integer as double, and it returns as double. That line there is called your signature. And if you have a slightly different signature, the same method, but a slightly different signature, say one of the parameters, you have an extra parameter in there. So you have a third parameter. Well, that would actually be that's perfectly valid in C# to rename your function add, but have three parameters. And this is what's called method overloading, where you have the same method name, but you have different implementations of that method name. And that's what's called polymorphism. It's the same thing, but you have different implementations of it, okay? So that's polymorphism, that's inheritance. And then there's something that you can do in VBA is where you have encapsulation, where the code kind of sits behind the scenes, where one object doesn't necessarily know what's going on behind another object. It doesn't have to see all the stuff that's going on behind it in order to pull it in. And if you think about all of your properties that you create, if you create a public property, you should have a backing private property as part of that class. So when you create one of those properties on your classes, you have a private internal variable that's holding on to the actual value. That's encapsulation. The actual stuff behind your public property is that code or that method or whatever is encapsulated behind the scenes, and whatever class might be calling that function or calling that property doesn't understand what the underlying code structure is behind it. That's encapsulation. And those three things make up what we call object-oriented programming, okay? Being able to do inheritance, the polymorphism, and the encapsulation. Now, I typically throw on another thing called abstraction, And abstraction is really, really emphasizing that you should be trying to write your code so that you're using interfaces as much as possible, which is why it was such a big deal to me when I discovered that you could do interfaces in VBA. It means that you can, you basically write out a contract, and I demonstrated this in that video. You write out a contract, and then some class doesn't really know anything about who or what is going to actually implement that interface. All it knows is that there was an interface with these members on it, and it can call it. That's all it cares about. And that leads to things called, that leads to something called dependency inversion, where you're actually changing who's responsible for what. And it means that your business logic doesn't really care about how the implementation works. All it cares about is that it's there. It's a big deal in object-oriented programming languages to get to an abstraction. And that leads into something called the solid principles, which again was something that I was going to talk to Chris about. We were going to get into all this stuff. We were going to get into Agile, hopefully. We were going to get into object-oriented programming. We were going to get into solid. We were going to get into unit testing. And I'm just so bummed that he couldn't make it. And it really sucks that he had a family emergency. I really hope that whatever's going on there gets solved there, Chris. I'll be praying for you. I hope everything turns out for you, man. So you guys have seen unit testing. Let me see if there's anything else. I'm going to switch back over to my monitor here. See if there's anything else on here you guys might want to check out. So on RubberDuck, we have indenting. Oh, so this is cool. So I can, like, this always bothers me. This always bothers me. I want to just automatically have an indentation here, right? The little tab. Just please auto indents. I've been looking for an auto indentation. In Visual Studio, it's Control-K, Control-D. It automatically indents everything for you. But they don't have it in the VBE, and I don't know why. It's such a simple little thing to do. But luckily for us, RubberDuck has this. I can just go RubberDuck indent current module. There we go, automatically indented. Let's take on something a little bit bigger. Let's do this. I'm going to do So a bigger example here. Okay, let's do this. Okay, and you've probably run across code that's like this, right? Where the indentation is all wacky. You got if statements or whatnot that are all like together. And it just makes the code less readable, right? Like this looks less readable to me. But if I go up here and I do RubberDuck, indent, current module, well, bam, all that indentation is done for me. Sweet. That's fantastic. Like that alone right there is worth getting RubberDuck. Just being able to do the auto indentation on your code, because it's so annoying to have to do that manually. It's so annoying. Okay, what else can we do? Let's see. We got the Code Explorer, which is pretty cool, but I mean, there's no foldering, which really sucks. It's supposed to have foldering. I guess you could do this in Excel, but you can't really do it here, right? I can't add a folder. I can add a test module, standard module, class module. I can add a form. Oh, that's something that's pretty cool. But notice that I can't add a folder. And that's just basically, that's a functionality of Access. The Access VBA code doesn't allow you to do folders, whereas Excel, I believe, does. By the way, if you guys have any questions, at all, please drop them in the live chat box. If you don't know where it's at, I'm going to switch back over. I'm going to stop my sharing here real quick. So if you're looking on YouTube right now, if you look up in this corner, I hope I'm pointing in the right direction here. If you look up this way, you'll see that there's a little live chat window, and Muhammad's been really gracious about posting up his questions. Just keep doing that, guys. If you have any questions about this RubberDuck thing, please post them up there. And I'm keeping an eye on it here on my window. So, you know, if you want to ask me a question, just pop it in there. Okay, so let me go back to my screen. And for those of you guys who are wondering, I have a cold right now. So that's kind of why my voice probably sounds a little hoarse right now. Okay, what else have we got? So RubberDuck, navigation we did. So refactoring. So I showed you guys the extract interface, so I don't need to go back over that. Unit testing, I just demonstrated. Navigate, find a symbol, find all references, Go to implementation. I wonder what that does. I think that would mean find all references. No references found for the add method. Oh, okay. So that's probably what it means. So like here, if I do RubberDuck, navigate, find all references. Well, look at that. So I'm on my add function. Okay, let me just slow down here a bit so that I can show you guys this, because this is pretty cool. So I'm in my add function of my math class. Okay, and let's say I wanted to find, okay, where is this add method being called from? Like, where in my code, where else is this method being called from? I'll go to RubberDuck, go to navigate, find all references. Oh, look at there. Let me just expand this out. Huh. Well, let's see. There's that function. There's 1, 2, 3 different places that I implemented. Look at that. If I double click on it, it takes me right to it. How great is that? All right, well, if I click on this one, it takes me to that implementation. So you can hop right back and forth between your code to find out where the implementations are. That's pretty cool. That's going to be a time saver, right? If you need to find out where in your code you're referencing a function, you can find where it is in your code everywhere. What else can we do? Go to implementation. No references found for additional. Okay, not really sure. Oh, you know what? That would probably be for if I actually had an interface. It's probably more specific to interfaces. So let's see, tools, source control, to-do items. Ooh, regex assistant. So to-do items, just kind of keep track of your tasks. For those of you guys who haven't watched yet, I highly recommend. I did an agile talk recently at MiniCon, and there's some slides on there to kind of walk you guys through the agile process. So definitely go check that out. But essentially, you can take this, rename test. Look at that, rename test. So that's a to-do. Oh, look at that. Oh, that's awesome. So my to-do, oh, that is awesome. Okay, check this out. So just by adding the to-do, rename test, it shows up in to-do. How cool is that? Okay, I'm going to go to my math class. So here's what I'm talking about. Let's say to-do. Actually, you know what? Let me put it up here. To-do, refactor, add function. Okay, so that's just a to-do, just somewhere in there. And I'll do something like this. I'll add another to-do. To-do, be more macho. I don't know. Okay, so these are different spots in my code that I've added this little to-do that's commented out. And now I can go up here to my code to-do items, and I'll bet if I just refresh this, it found those to-do comments. How awesome is that? Module name, the line number, if I just double click on it, it takes me right to it. Oh, that is sweet. Look at that. That is freaking awesome. So I can just comment out anywhere that I need to do something in the future. I just put the to-do, and I can go to this to-do explorer and find all of the things that I still yet to do in my code. That is awesome. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Okay, source control. I'm not sure how this works, honestly. I haven't had a chance to really investigate this. I can see that it works with GitHub. And I've got my settings in here, so that's cool, but it looks like it's all been saved. Okay, changes. Let's see, commit message, test commit. We'll try this. Go. Do something. It's not doing anything. Wait, maybe I need to do a sync. Sync, can't do that. Outgoing message, incoming commits, branches. Oh wait, maybe I need to do. No, honestly I need to investigate this more, guys. I really do, because this is cool if it's what I think it is, where you can actually have legitimate source control, and I think I talked about that before. Oh, commit and sync. There we go. Can I do that? Test commit, please. Anything? Anything at all? I'm not getting anything working. I'm not sure. I might be just doing something wrong. Just missed that. But clicking on the go button doesn't seem to do anything. So included changes. Do I need to add files or something maybe? So I don't know. If somebody can figure this out, somebody can help me out with this. That would be great. I don't need to commit. Initialize a new repository maybe. Pardon me. Let me do this. I have a repository. Okay. Configure value username is missing or invalid. So there must be something configuration-wise I still need to do on this to make it work. So I'll try to investigate that. Maybe I'll come up with another video for you guys to show you how to do this, because source control is really, really big. If we can do that, that'd be fantastic. Maybe there's some online documentation. Maybe that's a good idea, huh? Maybe there's some documentation about source control. Maybe. We'll see. Getting started. There you go. So maybe I should follow this, huh? Maybe I should follow doing this whole thing, making sure that I get it set up. Maybe you guys can go check that out too. Set it up yourself. But source control is really, really cool. Something you really need to do. You know, being able to do the source control means that multiple people can work on the same project at the same time, which I think is absolutely awesome. Will you need admin rights to install RubberDuck? Yes. Yes, you will need admin rights to install RubberDuck. Is RubberDuck a final extension, or is it being developed itself? It's in constant development, but there's different iterations of this, and they typically do different pushes. So let's go back to RubberDuck VA. So we got the, what is RubberDuck? I think we can go to the download section. Let me see if I can find it. You know what? Let me go back to RubberDuck VA. Okay, and I'm going to go down here to the download. And you can see here's different releases, right? With the issues that they're solving, because obviously it's going to be a continuous process. Every time that they run into issues, like the one that I submitted today about the test code window, the test explorer doesn't work when you have references turned on to the RubberDuck library. It doesn't work, so we had to take out that reference. So that's what I'm talking. Just so I can recap this for anybody who's coming on late. If you have RubberDuck as a reference in here, it'll actually cause problems with their little compiler. So you have to make sure you're not doing early binding with RubberDuck. And which really sucks, because I love early binding so that I can do my development. But it makes sense that we would want, so here we go, early binding. You want to turn this off. So I kind of hate that. I love early binding because I get my IntelliSense, and then later on I just go in and alter the code a little bit to do late binding. Because late binding is really cool for when people don't have these things, right? People aren't going to have RubberDuck installed on their systems. So when you go to distribute your application, you obviously don't want that reference in there, because it'll fail, right? Their access to the database is going to fail unless they also have RubberDuck installed, which would really suck. You'd have to install it in everybody's machine. But if you do this late binding like this, then you don't have to worry about it, okay? So that's just something to think about. If you're going to be doing these unit tests, you're going to probably want to be doing late binding. I just like to do the early binding so that I can actually see my IntelliSense while I'm doing my asserts. So just kind of my thing. Anyway, so let's get back to what we were talking about. Where is it? So the releases here. So this is where you can see, like, here's the older releases, what the issues were that they fixed. Here's the latest release, which we just got. And then you can also check out, here's the list of issues, and you can submit your own issues. So like, here's the one that I just submitted 2 hours ago. So that's my issue with referencing of RubberDuck TLB causes indefinite loading references. So you can see all the issues that are currently being tackled, the current bugs. And this is an open source project, so there's many people working on this. Let's see, projects. Getting gettable source code control. Yeah, source control has been acting up a little and has generally been very unstable as of late. The project is to consolidate all issues relating to stabilize source control into a clean overview. So they're working on some stuff, it looks like, to try to make GitHub work a little bit better. Maintenance, so they have another maintenance one to track their technical debt. That's pretty cool. So GitHub is really useful for stuff like this. You know, kind of keeping track of where stuff is and keeping track of issues. You can actually do your own pull requests. You can clone it yourself, so you can work on it yourself and make changes if you want, and then resubmit it back to, you know, submit it as part of a push, so that, you know, maybe in the next version, your version will be released. So that's pretty cool. So it's constantly being developed. There's right now it's in a final. I mean, it's in an RTM release. It's in a full. You know, it's got its own. It's got an actual release that you can work with right now and download. But of course, they're constantly making fixes and changes and bug fixes. As a matter of fact, one thing that I should point out is they also have a WordPress blog, and recent posts up for grabs. Oh, here we go. So they're working on the next version, 2.12, and they said 5 days. It was due 5 days ago, but they'd actually need 2 to 3 more weeks. There's a lot of cool stuff that they're working on here. Oh, I was going to show you guys forums too. But this is worth a read so you guys can see what's coming up next, what they're going to be releasing. Yeah, so I was going to show you guys forms. This is kind of cool. Some of you may not have known that you could do this in Access, and it definitely, if you've been doing Excel work, you already knew this. Well, if you've been doing hard code Excel VBA work, like you've really, really, really gotten to know it, you already know that you can do this. Did you know that you can do forms in Excel? I bet a lot of you guys did not know that. But what you want to do is you can do a RubberDuck. Where is it? Where is it? Maybe it's up here. Where did it go? Where'd it go? RubberDuck. Insert. Is it under there? Where is it? I know I saw it. Bear with me here. I just need to find it. Modules. Come on. Rename, find all references, go to implementation. Gosh dang it, where are you? Refactor tools, source control. Bear with me here. I will find it. I will find it. Indent, tests. Oh, where are you? Come on. Tools. Oh, here's some protection. You can protect your code, lock project for viewing, add a password to it. You could already do that, but hopefully it's a bit more secure through RubberDuck. Maybe they have some .NET language and stuff in there to help solve that problem. Gosh, where is it? I know that I could insert a procedure. What's that? Oh, okay. Where is it? Where is it? I swear, where? I know I could insert a form, but I just can't seem to find it. Let's do this. Unhandled exception. Oh. RubberDuck, refactor, indent, no. Maybe I need to restart my access. I don't know. I'm sorry, guys. I know you could do it. Save the changes. Why not? Sometimes you just got to close and reopen. Still wanting a working split container in Access. Split container. Split container. Janice says, hi, of course, forms can be created in Excel in VBA, insert user form. You're right. Doggone it. I gotta shut down my access. All right. So Jen, as you're saying, insert user form, but there is no user form here. Insert class module. I know that I saw it. I swear I saw it. Oh, I need to hit this, redo this. There is a whole other thing, though, that I'm looking for. I'm sorry, guys. I don't want to waste your guys' time just sitting here watching me try to find something in code. That really kind of sucks, doesn't it? But I swear that there is something in here. RubberDuck. I was using RubberDuck and found it. Code inspections. Oh, that's kind of cool. You can do code inspections and stuff, too. I didn't really get to that, did I? Consider renaming module 1. Consider renaming. I already did that. Parameter first integers implicitly passed by reference. So just some code quality issues, stuff that you can check out. Maybe what does this do? So if I fix this, what does that do? What does that do? What did that do? Second integer on my math class. I'm curious. What did that do? Oh, by ref. Huh. So it just being more explicit by ref instead. So it'd be like doing this by ref. Cool. Gosh, I really wish I could find. I know I saw that you can add a form in here. And for some reason, I can't seem to find it now. RubberDuck. Wait, no, expandable. Insert, and it's usually there. You think it was in the RubberDuck Code Explorer? You might. Oh, you're right. You're right. Thank you. Thank you. M. Granot. Thank you. You're absolutely right. You have made my day. You're absolutely right. It was in the Code Explorer window. Come on, give me the double. There we go. Add. There we go. User form. Bingo. You're a genius. Thank you. You're right. Okay, so we added our user form. That's cool. And then you can do a form right there. And this is a Win32 form. This is not an access form. This is a Win32 form, so you get all the kind of like the ActiveX kind of form controls here. Honestly, they're not as useful to me as the access forms, right? But you can do some pretty cool things with it, you know. You could make it like a splash screen or something like that instead. So let's just do like my splash screen. That's really great. Nothing real too particularly fancy there, huh? But anyway, so yeah, you could have like regular Win32 forms inside of your VBA code, and you know, actually do everything in here instead of doing it as an access class, I guess you could say. So I think I've pretty much exhausted most everything in here that I've been able to discover. To-do items, I'll tell you what, that is really cool. Being able to see where all your to-do remarks are and just hopping right to them. You can do one at a time. Just, oh, I got to add a function here. Be more macho. Nice. So that's really cool. So you just add the comment to do, and you can just do your to-do explorer. You got the source control. I hope they fix that. Navigation, you know, find the references. That's really cool. Doing the refactorings. We didn't really get too much into that, but I did show you guys how to do extraction of an interface. Can I? Maybe I could do this. RubberDuck, refactor, extract, refactor, extract method, new method. So there's my new method, first integer. That's interesting. Huh. So it actually did it for me. That's interesting. So it took that line of code and just sent it to its own function, which for a lot of reasons, that's actually really good to do. Because you want to have, that's the single responsibility of solid. And I'm going to stop sharing here. So that's for like single responsibility principle of the solid principles, which if you guys ever get into solid principles, that's really good. That's kind of like your Bible. If you guys are wondering how to write your code better, learn solid principles. And even in VBA, now that we know that we can do more object-oriented stuff in VBA, learn the solid principles: single responsibility principle, the open-close principle, the Liskov substitution principle, it's the interface separation principle, and then the dependency inversion principle. Once you guys learn the solid principles, those are like when you're thinking and planning about how your code should work and how to make classes interact with each other and make functions and methods work together, you should be thinking in terms of those solid principles to make your code more modular, and easier to manage over time. That's really what the goal of the solid principles is for, is to make your code easier to manage and make modifications to. And when I was talking about, abstract classes and trying to code to abstractions instead, that's also part of it, being able to write your code so that you don't really care about the concrete implementations, so that later on you can change those concrete implementations. And then if you have unit testing through test-driven development backing up all of how that works, not only can you make your refactorings very easy by having interfaces that implement those concrete classes that implement those interfaces, but now you have unit tests that check to verify that that new implementation works in just the way that you want it to. So that's the good stuff. That is like, if you want to get to professional level where you are the best at what you do, you are the best developer in your area, and you can make your code hum and sing, and people can ask you to make changes, and you say, no problem, I can make those fixes. You can definitely do that. You want to do the solid principles. And now, like I said, now that we have unit testing, and now that we know we can do more object-oriented type of stuff with interfaces, that means our code is going to be more modular, more abstraction-based, and we can make changes, and we don't have to worry about how much stuff is going to be broken in places we didn't want it to break. Okay, so that's all the good stuff. That's really why this is also important. I know a lot of you guys probably are still you might have seen my advanced course, that advanced video on interfaces. So if you haven't watched that, go back and watch it. It'll kind of show you how an interface works. But I think I'm probably going to wrap it up here. Obviously, Chris couldn't make it. So again, I really hope that whatever's going on with his family, everything works well. God bless. We'll be praying for him and hope everything is good. And Chris, let me know, like I said, if there's anything that I can do. I probably can't because I'm way the heck out here, but really, if there is anything, just let me know, and we can definitely reschedule. I'm sure everybody that's watching right now would love to have you on. So does anybody else have any questions? I'm looking over here at my screen so that, if you guys have any questions, I'm looking at them before I close this up. Anything else that you guys might have? And again, thank you so much for all your guys' assistance with that. M. Grano, thank you for figuring out that it was the Solution Explorer to find the form. That was, or the Code Explorer, I should say, to find the form. That was excellent. That was an excellent find. Please do some more interesting VBA videos. Define interesting. Define interesting. I don't know what I know what is interesting to me. I don't know what's interesting to you guys. Although I guess so far it's been okay, right? You guys have been liking the videos that I put out, and you guys are always thanking me. So I guess I've been putting together interesting videos. Janice was let me ask you, did you see the interface video that I just posted, the advanced access video? If you did, was that interesting? Was that something, I mean, that's more technical stuff. That's more of the real in-depth, in the weeds kind of development with VBA. Is that kind of what you're talking about? Did you see it? Is that what you're talking about as being more interesting? Emgrano, thank you. Thank you for saying that this video was interesting. By the way, my shirt, you guys can see this. I don't know if you guys are Star Wars fans, but yeah, it says pew pew. That's awesome, right? It says pew pew. Okay, so Janice saw it. Thank you. Yes, that kind of stuff. Okay, or that kind of staff. Oh, I don't have any. Okay. Yeah. Obviously, you meant that's the kind of stuff. But yes, awesome. Okay, good. So yeah, I'll probably do some more in-depth stuff like that. But I think, Jan, is if that's the kind of stuff that you really want out of VBA, you might really want to start checking out C# and .NET stuff too, because it's so much more useful. I love Access. Don't get me wrong. I love Access. I love VBA. It's what I it's what I learned on it, right? Well, it wasn't the first thing I ever learned, but it was what I really learned to become a professional at. It was my first big language. So I have a big heart for Access, and I am so glad that RubberDuck brings some of the coding practices that we have in the other disciplines and the other languages, and it's starting to bring some of those things into VBA, which is really, really cool. That's why I'm so excited about RubberDuck, and it does mean that I'm going to be able to show you guys some of that more in-depth stuff, like the interfaces and things. A working split container in Access forms. A split container. I don't know what you mean by split container. You're probably giving a technical term to something that I'm just not really familiar with. I don't know. So could you elaborate on that? What's a split container? Maybe I should do a quick little search. Hey, tell you what, let's do search together. What is split container? I'm going to waste your guys' time here. How's that? Let's waste some time. What is split container? Let's see what we got here. What can we do? So how do we do a Google search here? Let me pull up. Yes, I use Google. Yes, I use Chrome. Okay, so split container. C# example. Split container class, split container control, split container Windows forms. Two panels of split container, two subcontainers in it. Is that where you add controls by clicking controls? Resizable. Split your layout in form to two parts, left half and right half, or top and bottom half. Gives the user more control over how the window is arranged. Oh, you know what? I think what you're talking about here, and you're right, I never did really get into this. Okay, so that's for the Windows form, and I get what you're talking about now with split container. Okay. I never knew that there was an actual definitive term for this. But essentially, like if I have a list box here, so let me add a list box like that, okay? And I'm not going to put anything in it right now, but just say that I have this list box and I view it and it's all good in there. But what if I resize this window? So resize that, put it more in the middle, okay? And right now, if I open this up, it just puts it right there in the same spot. And it's basically what we call anchored. It's anchored to the upper left-hand corner. And all you have to do is if you go up here to, it's under arrange, you can change the anchoring. And we can say, well, I want to stretch down and across, for example. If that's the case, then when we view it, it makes the list size bigger. And then if you change the size of your window, notice that it changes with you. So that's really cool. That's the anchoring. And I think that's probably something you would be interested in doing. Is that kind of what you're talking about? And you could add other forms. You can do you can't really do split forms. You could do subform inside of here and work with stuff like that. So the anchoring probably would be real helpful in something like that. And all right, I think, Why is RubberDuck late? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Split container. So that's that interpretation of a split container. I don't know why I never really thought of that as a split container. It's just two panels. Yeah. Change the orientation. Yeah, there really isn't like panels. I guess they are. I mean, really what you have in forms is you can have subforms. So if I had this one form, I'm going to create, and I know this is totally off topic, totally not part of the video series or video I was planning on doing today. But let's just say form 2. And we'll create another one here. Create form 3. I want to add form 3 here. Form 3. Okay, so I've got 3 forms here. What I want to do is I want to take form 1 and I want to put both of those 2 subforms in it. So all I do is I just say, okay, add a subform control here. Use that one. Finish. Okay. And now I'm just going to add another one. And Bob's your uncle. Well, Bob may not actually be your uncle, but you get the idea. And now if I just run this, oh, I've got the 2 in design view, so it won't let me do this just yet. Hold on here. Got to close these down and reload the form. There you go. So there's your form 2 and form 3. So that's kind of like how you can do, you can't really do the draggable divider between them. What you could do, though, is like I had before. So I'm going to anchor this. And now, no, that's going to be ugly. Instead of doing down and across, let's do, let's just do stretch down, and same with this one, stretch down. Actually, we'll do this. We'll do stretch down and bottom. Let's do stretch. Let's see. This one should be stretched down and right, and this should be stretched down and left. Okay. So if we do that, then we have like that. And now if we just kind of, if the window gets rearranged, it kind of just follows like that. So it's not exactly like, you know, like your split panels like you're talking about. Sorry, I do much more WPF work. I had totally spaced that you could do containers like this in WinForms. I just hardly ever do WinForms anymore. I'm such a .NET guy in web, ASP.NET Web and Core. So sorry, I didn't really realize what it was you were talking about there with split containers. That's about basically what you can do with Access, though. So let me bring back to the camera. Okay, guys, I'm probably running out of steam. I probably lost a bunch of you guys, didn't I? I have 4 viewers now. 4 viewers. I started at, I think I had at one time like 12 of you guys. I think probably back when we thought that Chris was going to be here. So anyway, we have wasted a bunch of everybody's time. It's been an hour-and-a-half long talk. I've gone over so much stuff, both about RubberDuck and some other stuff just because you guys were asking about it. And I always want to make you guys happy. So there you guys go. Any other questions before I sign off here? We good? Oh, you're welcome, Imgrado. Does that solve, I mean, does that give you at least something to work with? There really isn't a split panel, a split container like that. You know, it's adjustable like that. Oh, thank you, Mohammed. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Okay, I think that's going to do it for you guys. If you guys have any questions about any of the stuff that we did here and you're watching this video after I recorded it live, just drop that question in the comment section below this video, and I will be happy to answer it for you. I'm going to also have to rename this video since Chris never appeared so that it makes a bit more sense what we talked about. So if you guys liked the video, please hit that thumbs up button. Make sure that I know that you guys liked it and you enjoyed it. Don't forget to favorite it, add it to some of your, your own, you can make your own like lists of videos to watch, your own, oh, come on, playlists. There we go. You can make your own playlist. And if you add this video, if you add any of my videos to your own playlist, it actually can be searchable and actually gives better rankings and stuff to my videos. So please do that. If you guys like my videos and you want to keep track of them for your own watching benefit, don't feel like you have to come to my channel to go find them. You can actually store them in your own playlists so that you can kind of keep them in order for yourself, and it helps me out in the process. So also don't forget, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and you can hit that little alert button that's on the subscription page, and that'll give you a notification whenever I post up a new video like this one, or whenever I'm going to do a live interview like I was supposed to do today. You guys would get notified, so you could hop on into the live channel and the live chat and ask the questions of Chris. So okay, when am I planning the next video? Whenever the heck I can get around to it, man. It's just kind of whenever I can, I do them. And I'm pretty busy. I got a lot of projects going on right now. We're actually looking to hire someone right now. So I'm kind of in an interview process right now to try to find somebody that's going to be coming on. So yeah, I'm pretty busy right now, but I'm doing videos whenever I can, like this one. I was hoping that this might satisfy some of your guys' thirst for some new content. Anyway, I hope to see you guys in the next video. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.